What if the love you feel online is actually a sophisticated algorithmic hijack of your biology? We are dissecting how digital validation bypasses your rational barriers to trigger chronic neurochemical depletion. Discover the precise moment your smartphone transforms from a communication tool into a predatory force that replaces genuine human bonding. The current draft brilliantly outlines the dopamine-driven reward cycle, but overlooks the crucial catalyst of variable reinforcement, specifically how reward uncertainty amplifies attentional capture.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the weakness here is that the submitted material treats digital validation as a static, guaranteed reward, like eating a sugary treat.
Right, you eat the sugar, you get the predictable dopamine hit.
Exactly. But framing it that way bypasses the whole biological engine of the hijack, which is unpredictability. If a reward is guaranteed every single time, the human brain just habituates to it. We get bored. By not addressing concepts like uncertainty-modulated attentional capture, or UMAC, the text fails to explain why the brain cannot adapt to or just ignore these digital cues.
Wait, uncertainty-modulated attentional capture?
Yeah, UMAC. It is a biological mechanism. Without acknowledging it, the draft is incomplete, because it is the inconsistency of the reward that truly enslaves the prefrontal cortex.
I see. So it sounds like the difference between a standard vending machine, where you know what you will get, and a slot machine, where the mystery itself drives the compulsion. Is there a risk that focusing solely on the presence of the validation misses the predatory pattern of its delivery?
That is a brilliant analogy, yes. The smartphone is essentially a slot machine in your pocket. So the suggestion for the author is to integrate the concept of reward uncertainty directly into the biological mechanism. They need to explain exactly why the prefrontal cortex loses its top-down control.
Right, shifting the focus from the mere presence of digital affection to the randomized delivery of that affection.
Precisely. And a concrete example for improvement would be detailing how mechanisms like the pull to refresh feature mimic a variable ratio schedule.
Oh yeah, like when you pull down on your feed and get that little spinning loading wheel?
Right. That spinning wheel is the slot machine lever. Because the reward, a new like or some algorithmic validation, because it is completely unpredictable, the dopamine prediction error in the brain cannot be fully driven to zero.
Which means your brain never actually solves the puzzle.
Exactly. It causes sustained hyperreactivity in the striatum. The rational brain cannot shut down the seeking behavior because it never learns the pattern. It is chaotic by design.
That makes so much sense. Moving to our next major area, the characterization of digital validation as a foreign neurological parasite is highly evocative, yet it misses the opportunity to ground this behavior in misapplied evolutionary adaptations, specifically the phenomenon of sign tracking.
Right, the parasite metaphor. Framing the smartphone and its algorithms purely as an external invading force is a weakness, because it ignores the fact that the user's brain is doing exactly what it evolved to do.
It is functioning perfectly, just in the wrong environment.
Exactly. The draft lacks the nuance of how individual cognitive profiles process these cues. It completely overlooks the biological reality of incentive salience, which is where a previously neutral cue, like a notification ping or the physical phone itself, becomes the object of intense desire, bypassing the actual reward.
If we label this a parasite, do we accidentally strip the user of their biological agency? We might be missing the fact that this is an evolutionary survival trait, functioning exactly as designed, just in a highly engineered modern trap.
That is the exact pushback the author needs to consider. The suggestion here is to soften the parasite metaphor and instead reframe the hijack as the weaponization of a deeply conserved survival mechanism.
Weaponized evolution. That is actually way more terrifying than a parasite.
It really is. The text should show how the digital environment forces the brain to attribute survival-level importance to these synthetic cues. For concrete examples for improvement, the author should introduce the Value-Modulated Attentional Capture paradigm, or VMAC.
VMAC, okay. How does that work in practice?
Well, think about sign tracking in animal models. Just as an animal might obsessively gnaw at a lever that predicts food rather than waiting by the actual food bowl.
Wait, they actually bite the lever?
Oh yeah, they will aggressively interact with the predictor of the reward. That is sign tracking. So applied to humans, we stare at the glowing rectangle of the phone rather than seeking the actual human connection it supposedly provides.
Wow. So we are basically biting the lever.
Exactly. The phone itself, the glowing screen, acquires massive incentive salience. If the author includes that VMAC paradigm, it grounds the dramatic tone in actual behavioral neuroscience.
That is a phenomenal pivot for the text. Okay, looking at the final major issue, the exploration of chronic neurochemical depletion correctly identifies a biological imbalance, but it conflates synthetic dopamine spikes with the actual regulation of oxytocin and serotonin.
Yeah, this is a very critical biological distinction. The weakness here is that the text asserts that algorithmic intimacy mimics oxytocin spikes.
Like getting a text message floods you with the love hormone?
Right, but the clinical data reveals a much more insidious reality. Digital interaction actively lacks the physical proximity, eye contact, and synchronized presence required to trigger meaningful oxytocin release.
Because you are just looking at glass.
Exactly. Instead, large language models and social media algorithms use affective validation to trigger mesolimbic dopamine. The material treats digital love as a direct oxytocin spike, rather than a dopamine-driven illusion that leaves oxytocin and serotonin severely depleted.
Building on the idea of this being an evolutionary trap, what if we looked at this as a form of neurochemical starvation? The user is consuming empty digital calories, getting the fast dopamine hit of a social interaction, but entirely missing the oxytocin nutrition of real human connection.
Empty digital calories. I love that phrasing. The suggestion for the author is to clarify this neurochemical distinction. They need to contrast the immediate dopamine surge of algorithmic validation against the actual oxytocin starvation and serotonin suppression inherent to the digital medium.
And the serotonin suppression comes from the social comparison side of things, right?
Yeah, the FOMO, the metrics, the follower counts, all of that actively suppresses serotonin because your brain constantly perceives a threat to its social status.
So for concrete examples for improvement, how should they frame this?
They should specify that artificial intelligence and social media mimic human empathy just well enough to stimulate the mesolimbic dopamine pathway. But because they cannot trigger oxytocin, the user experiences profound social isolation and anhedonia, despite feeling supposedly connected.
You are endlessly seeking, but you are never biologically satisfied.
Right. You have high dopamine anticipation, but rock-bottom oxytocin. Fixing this mapping will give the piece so much more emotional and scientific weight.
Well, to wrap up this critique, the material is incredibly strong and conceptually gripping. To elevate it to the next level, the author should focus on 3 actionable steps. First, integrate reward uncertainty and UMAC to explain the true mechanics of the hijacked. Second, reframe the parasite metaphor by exploring sign tracking and incentive salience to show how our own evolutionary biology is being weaponized. And finally, clarify the neurochemical aftermath by contrasting the dopamine surge of digital validation with the profound oxytocin and serotonin starvation it leaves in its wake. We highly encourage the listener to revise the text with these biological distinctions in mind and submit the updated work back in for another round of feedback.